Hey, welcome, folks. Everybody who's watching us tonight. I feel a little bit like saying, Watson, are you there? Because this is the Town of Cohasset Board of Selectmen's March 31st, 2020 meeting. And it is the first meeting ever in which we are doing completely virtual. And we're using Zoom technology, and as well, we're on 143 TV. So this is a very new experience for us all, and we've been using this technology to enhance communications throughout the town, and we're going to do it even further so that we can have more and more governmental meetings and keep everything going very well for the community. So, and it's going very good, excellent so far. It'll get even better. So welcome to this new world. And I'll begin the meeting with a roll call, beginning with Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy here.
Paul Schubert here.
Kevin McCarthy here.
Carrie Thompson here.
Jack Creighton here.
Okay. Excellent. And with that, I'd like to invite everybody to do, as we usually do, the Pledge of Allegiance, and there's a flag right behind me, which we can use. So I would invite everybody in the community and at the meeting to join in on it. So I pledge allegiance to the flag,
To the flag
States
of
of
the
America,
United States of America,
and the
and
republic
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Very good. We'll begin the meeting with an update. As you know, we have been in a public emergency for a couple of weeks at least now, in concert with the state's declaration of public emergency. And we're fortunate enough because they have incredibly busy schedules and are working many, many hours, both the individuals we're about to introduce, as well as their entire organizations, which we're much appreciative of. And so we're going to now have the report on an update on the status of the public emergency in Cohasset. And the speakers will be Chief Robert Sylvia, Chief William Quigley, and the Emergency Management Director, Glenn Pratt. So whichever individual wishes to commence speaking may.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for this opportunity. I will kick this off with just a little bit of background, and then Chief Quigley will pick up on his piece as far as public safety. And Glenn's got quite an update on some of the things that we've been doing for the past month. So what I want to remind you, it's been a while since we've had a chance to meet and talk about this, but we've been meeting collectively as a group now for over a month. We started our planning back in January. And at this point, we still meet daily at 8 o'clock with the public health agent, the public health nurse, the town manager, human resources director, DPW director, police, fire, emergency management, and IT. And that's 7 days a week. We meet every morning to review exactly what's happened in the past 24 hours. And as you all know, it's been happening that fast. So we go over the events of the day, things that we need to deal with, and we have been fully prepared for what we think is coming. A month ago, I said to you, I thought there was a freight train coming. Well, it's headed this way, and I think everybody's aware of it. On top of those daily meetings, twice a week, we meet with that core group, and we also include the schools, finance, elder affairs, procurement, and safe harbor. Again, we have had a great partnership between all of those agencies that are all together. And more on that, as I said, between Chief Quigley and Glenn. But at this time, I just want to take a moment to just mention the fire department is obviously ready to go. The ambulance is stocked and ready. We have all the PPE we need, the protective equipment that we need. The crews have been thoroughly trained. We've had great partnership with South Shore Hospital, that our emergency medical director at the hospital not only has been advising us on guidance that, you know, picks up on what the Department of Public Health has given us and what we've gotten from the CDC, but in addition to all the guidance, he's also been the emergency medical director for our regional communication center. So they are they are fully prepped to do this also, to do what we think we're going to run into in the next month or two. And along that line, they're asking all the right questions. Chief Quigley and I have a lot of faith in the fact that as we put our folks into harm's way, that they know what they're getting into on a case-by-case or call-by-call basis. So the only other thing I really like to touch on real quick is, obviously, if you got to see the governor's press conference this afternoon, he announced that the stay-at-home order has been extended until May 4th. And I'd like to take a moment just to remind everyone what the stay-at-home order was. So along that line, on March 24th, the Mass Department of Public Health issued a public health advisory to provide guidance regarding stay-at-home and safe practices. The purpose of this advisory is to take strong action to reduce everyone's potential exposure to COVID-19. So what does stay-at-home mean? And I'm going to use a little bit of a different term here, and you're going to notice it as soon as I say it. But what does stay-at-home mean? It means only leave your home to address essential needs, get some fresh air and exercise. And if you do, avoid unnecessary contact with other individuals. You can still go outside to get fresh air. However, you must practice, and here's the big two words, physical distancing. We keep hearing about the other two words, social distancing, but there's nothing social about it. And that's what we're trying to get that message across to folks, that physically distance yourself by 6 feet. It doesn't mean going and have an extended time with your friends at 6 foot distance. This is about time and distance and a virus that is incredibly, incredibly contagious. And I'm sure Dr. Schubert will speak to that later. So, as it said, you can still run your essential errands, such as going to the grocery store or the pharmacy, but you should practice physical distancing. Stay away from people as you can when you go shopping. If you are at high risk, and that's everybody above a certain age, which there are some people on this call that might be, or at this meeting that might be, the stores and the pharmacies have created alternative hours for you to go and do this, and go shopping, go to the pharmacy and do it safely. Check with those, and Glenn again may speak to that in a minute. All right, what does physical distancing not mean? It means parents should not be arranging play dates for their children, and all individuals must eliminate close contact activities such as pickup sports games. What it doesn't mean is physical distancing does not mean social isolation. We have phone calls, we all have phones, we have cell phones, we have FaceTime, we have Skype, we have GoToMeeting, we have Zoom platforms. I know a lot of folks that are getting together with their friends in a virtual way. It's a brave new world we entered. So, you know, it is what it is. And I've kind of been with, we're asking a lot of everyone, but by staying at home, you're looking out for your health and the safety of your family first, your friends and others. Everyone in Cohasset has an important role to play to slow the transmission of this virus. Every instance of potential exposure that can be eliminated is an important step to our community. So if you would like to see more about that social distancing, and as I said, physical distancing, go to mass.gov/COVID-19 or call 211. That's where you will get your answers. Go, as Governor Baker keeps trying to tell everyone, please get your information from credible sources. Do not believe what is coming out of the TV every day. Go to the right places, get the right information, stay fully aware of everything that's going on. And the last thing I'll say, stay home, stay safe, and save lives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll kick this over to Chief Quigley.
Well said, very much. And Chief Quigley will be next. One second.
I think I'm unmuted now, I believe.
You're unmuted now.
Okay, can you hear me? Can
Yes.
you hear me? Okay.
Yes, what do you, are you
Trace,
zero,
Chief,
you
could throw up
0196?
No, that's Lieutenant Lennon. I'm iPad. I should,
Okay,
the video should be on. You got me?
You're right. Okay. You're on. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
field is
Trace, can
yours,
you throw up that graphic
Chief
I sent
William
over?
Quigley.
The host
Okay.
disabled me from
Tracy?
putting anything up on the screen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Chris, can you unblock her to put a graphic up?
I should be able to do it now.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Mr. Chair. Oh, okay.
Can you hear
So
me?
this incident yep, I got you. Oh, there we go. So you just had it. It was just there. All right, the elusive graphic. But at any rate, we divided this incident as far as the police department goes into 4 phases. And the first phase started, back in February before this was really on everybody's radar as much as it is today. But we call that the pre-planning phase. And during that time in February, we met with the fire department, the Board of Health, and emergency management, and we ordered bulk supplies of PPE. And it's included 6 cases of hand sanitizer, 3,500 pairs of rubber gloves, 70 Tyvek suits, 150 pair of eye protection goggles. We have 400 masks. That includes surgical procedure masks and rapid deployment hoods. And again, we coordinated with those other departments. Can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. If there's any questions, just jump in. And during March, we had our first case of COVID-19 on March 1st. It seems like an eternity ago, but it was March 1st. And Trace, can you try loading that again? That graphic. It's still getting a white screen, but
Yeah, it's weird.
we called.
I took it. Yeah, got it. It should be up there. It's saying it's sharing it with you guys, but nobody can see it.
If you nope. Well, that's okay. I can read here. So during the month of March, we're in a state of increased readiness, and during that time, we issued the PPE to all the officers. We installed extra sanitizing stations, extra sanitizing stations within the police station. We adjusted a lot of our policies and procedures. We modified some of the command staff schedules and how we run roll call. And we also, there we go, there it is. We also have daily briefings with the leadership, as Chief Sylvia alluded to. We have a daily phone call at 8 a.m. every day, 7 days a week, to make sure everybody's on the same page. And then we're in the yellow column right there. And we've also, at the department during March, during this increased readiness phase, we had to limit non-essential functions. And those are things like issuing new gun permits, some of the licenses, solicitor licenses, and things like that. And that's been put on hold till the state of emergency has been brought under control pursuant to the governor's order. So, tomorrow, April 1st, we'll be entering the 3rd phase of this operation, and that'll be the emergency operation. And we have a plan in place. We're not ready to do it yet, but there is a plan in place to transition to 12-hour shifts if we have to do that, if we end up with officers getting sick or ill. And, thankfully, everybody's healthy right now. We have contingency plans that we've worked out with emergency management for food and temporary housing for officers if we have to keep people at work. We're taking all low priority calls that we receive via, we're doing it via telephone as opposed to responding to people's homes. We have the ability to put the detectives in the SRO into the patrol force. We can weave them in at any time if we need the manpower, or we can put them where we need to put them in an emergency. The command staff has been keeping separate from one another. And we've also, most importantly, we have a plan for continuing of operations of the Shrek. So if the dispatch is, if the Shrek building in Hingham becomes infected or goes down, we can transition a dispatcher to handle the Cohasset calls and issues to the Emergency Operations Center, which is, as you know, below the Day Hill School. Are there any questions so far?
Let me just see if anybody's got their hand up. No, we seem to be okay so far. Go ahead, you can continue to
Okay.
the recovery
And
portion.
then, sure, the final phase, and hopefully that happens in May, is the recovery phase. And you can see that, during that phase, would take steps to prepare an after actions report to figure out what went right, what went wrong during this incident. Also replace the PPE that we've used, and also do a deep clean of the station, and get back to normal operations. So that's just a quick overview how the police department at least has broken this up into 4 phases, and how we plan on operating throughout this. But just to reiterate, everybody's healthy right now. We're well supplied, and everything is under control. If someone calls 911, we're coming. It's again, we're in good shape.
Okay, Chief, quickly. Any questions? I'm looking on my board here. I don't see any flags risen. So if that's nobody's hands up. So if that's the case, then what we'll do is go over now to the Emergency Management Director, Glenn Pratt. Glenn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many of you know, the main function of emergency management in an incident response is to coordinate and facilitate the all the different departments and all the resources that are needed. So I'd like to just go through quickly what is happening with the different departments. The school department, which has their own world of following the new education requirements and what they have to do with their student population, has been a tremendous help for us. We are taking advantage of their food service for the meals that need to go out to seniors. They've made their bus drivers available to help with driving senior vans and other things that need to be done for the senior center. Their custodians have been available, and they have been just a tremendous partner in spite of the day-to-day business of educating the kids that they have going on virtually. The Council on Aging, the senior center, has their arms totally around the at-risk and senior population. They have a working relationship with the schools so that their feeding and food is picked up on a routine basis. They have help from the bus drivers driving their vans and delivery. They are the liaison to the food pantry in town. That's working out very well. They also have a great partner in the Social Service League who has been standing behind them in just about any request they have to help seniors. The other department that's running it essentially half staff is DPW facilities. They split their staffs a couple of weeks ago so that there would be a situation where they could have the entire staff contaminated and everybody would be out and nothing would be happening. So they're working split shifts, week off, week on. Some of the school custodians are covering some of their work on the weekends. And so they're doing their regular work and they're doing the daily sanitizing of many of the town buildings. The schools are closed, so that's not happening there, but the other town buildings all have a sanitizing routine that goes on every day. And they're reacting to and responding to some of the requests and some of the needs that we turn up in our 8 o'clock meeting every morning. So they're doing a little bit of their regular work, but probably not much. The other group, we call it the community services departments, recreation, library, safe harbors. They are just terrific. They're full of ideas about how to keep people busy and social media content and outreach. And so they're doing terrific. One of the big initiatives that's Chris and IT have been working on is to keep the town government operations running, keep the town hall employees out of town hall and working. The buzzword these days is working from home, but it turns out that it's easier said than done, but they've been making great progress on that. And thanks in large part to Ron Menard and his IT group. They're turning all sorts of miracles, it seems. They've been responsible for a lot of this virtual meeting like we're doing now, upgrading equipment, upgrading firewalls, upgrading switches, trying to get their hands on new laptops and Chromebooks and things for the school. So they've been doing a fabulous job. Chris probably can tell you more about what's happening with government operations as far as relating to town hall. The other great partners in town, we think, the two supermarkets, Stop and Shop and Shaw's. They've changed around their hours. They have procedures in the stores to protect customers and their employees. They speak to us every day about what they have going on and some of the initiatives that have come down from their corporate headquarters. They continue to say to us, there is no supply problem. So we're happy about what's happening with the supermarkets. We have been collecting new volunteers. People have been stepping forward to volunteer. We set up a volunteer page on the town website. 30 people have stepped forward there, including some nurses and physicians. 14 people have stepped forward through the emergency management website to sign up for our CERT team, which is interesting. And the senior center has picked up another 20 or so volunteers on top of the 100 that they normally have on board. So we have been in touch with everyone who's volunteered. Told them that we would be in touch with them when an opportunity came up that they could be helpful with. And in fact, about 7 people have been, passed out to different departments to help. We have, in emergency management, have been the coordinator on a lot of the information that goes up on social media over the last week or so. Some of the daily message has been a video clip. So we've been filming and editing those, as has Don Royne at 143 TV. I am in contact every day with MEMA, Mass Emergency Management Agency. They have certain informational data gathering information they get from us, and they're also reaching out saying, what do you need? What do you need? So very good relationship with them. In that same realm, FEMA has had, since March 13th, FEMA has had a what's called a portal open for this disaster. So we've been signed in and we've been gathering information. It most likely will be many months before anything comes to fruition from FEMA aid. However, we are putting our data in as we go. Department heads send all of their expenses that may be related to this incident to me. I coordinate it and it goes into the FEMA portal. So that's working. We have consolidated all of our supplies from all the different departments, so we know what we have, as the chief was saying, for personal protective equipment, what we have for cleaning and sanitizing materials. So that is all inventoried. We know where it is. Much of it has been consolidated and locked up at the EOC so that we get our hands on it quickly. And each department is working a little bit, but Michelle Leary and purchasing at town hall has been working every single day trying to turn up materials. Now you hear news all the time how difficult it is to get it, and the fact that everybody in the world is looking for the same stuff. That is true, but we have been plugging away and adding to our inventory every day. So I think that as far as cooperation and being able to respond, we're in pretty good shape, and would be interested in answering any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking at my list here to see if there's any hands that are up. And I'm not seeing any. Could you address how?
Actually,
maybe
my hand's up.
Oh, I didn't see it. Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
So I just want to reiterate from the 3 ahead of me that were speaking regards to the virus is currently now, it's in the community. So You may have read a few articles in the Boston Globe about healthcare workers being exposed, but also being positive. Some of these and many of these are through the community, and it's not through direct contact at, let's say, at work, in the hospital. So just to reemphasize, it's in the community. The best way we can prevent further spread is really preventing contact. So distance, time, shielding. Be sure that you wipe everything down, that you don't shake hands, you don't spend time with someone. Use the phone, yell over the fence, wash your hands. When you go to the supermarket, you will have to go get food. Make sure you have the list, distance yourself while you're there, go through. When you come home, wipe everything down. Make sure you can do it with one person. Do it in the most efficient manner you can do. The virus is not with any other vector out there. It's not going to live on your dog. It's not going to live on the mice in the house. It's going to live in humans. So it's a novel, brand new virus and only lives in humans. So if you can, what we're doing now is mitigate. You can prevent transmission from one to the other. You will limit exposure to pretty much everyone. First responders, police, town officials, town workers, DPW, healthcare workers, and your neighbor, and your mother, and your grandparents, and your kids, to prevent it from spreading further. So just to reemphasize that. I'm done.
Thank you, Paul. I see Diane Kennedy's hands up. And Diane, you're now unmuted. Please go ahead.
I don't know whether Chris is going to address some of the general government operations, but I think one of my big concerns as the board and as an employer is making sure that our staff members, particularly those of you that are with us tonight and some of the other senior staff who I know are meeting every single day and probably, very long calls under extraordinary circumstances. And you all have everything we're dealing with too, which is families and elderly parents and siblings and cousins and kids at home. So I just want to make sure that Chris, you have our support. And, I think if there's any way of sort of managing some downtime for some people or rotating them, whatever you choose as an administrator to do, I think we need to be supportive of that, because this is it's taxing on all of us, and I know just from work, my own work, I'm spilling over working 15 hours a day, and I still have to, deal with where am I going to go grocery shopping and how am I going to feed people, et cetera. So.
Thank you, Diane. And I don't see any, I see a hand up with Chris Senior. Chris, go ahead.
For really emphasizing.
Wait, Chris.
You got me?
Yes. Chris, you're on.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Yes.
So thank you, Paul, for reiterating all of that about the virus spread. I think it's really important, and you're on the front lines of this. And thank you, Diane, for talking about staff. We have been on calls literally every day for weeks. I think we've decided to start scaling back just a little bit. I think we've got to try to take Sundays as a somewhat day of rest. All of us are plugged in all the time. I do want to just reiterate my thanks to all the town staff, first responders, our finance team, DPW, facilities, the library staff who are working from home and keeping people plugged in on ebooks and e-lending, the folks at emergency management, elder affairs, the school department. We've done some great work. And I really, to pick up on what Glenn said, I really want to double down on thanking Ron Menard and his staff. They've taken an analog operation and they've done everything they can to make it digital, and it's not easy. The biggest single lift being making sure that we can all connect on a platform like we're doing tonight, that staff are connecting, that teachers connect with students, and they've been really moving mountains to make this happen. So I really want to thank them. At the same time as we're doing this, everyone else is too around the country. So, we're lucky we had a really strong foundation here, which has allowed us to pull a lot of this off, and we're still improvising. And we know we have a lot more to go. So I really want to thank the want to thank all of you, by the way, for your support. Every single one of you on the board who've been incredibly supportive, and everyone who's out there. Our three speakers tonight, and then everyone who's out there every day, keeping the RTF open and making sure that seniors are getting. So we are going to continue to roll out some more initiatives. I know one of the challenges we faced is making sure we protect our seniors and those who are immune compromised. We're rolling out a new option at the RTF. Fridays will be only for elders, for seniors, and for people who are immune compromised. That's going to be regular hours, but Fridays will only be for seniors and those with immune compromised situations. To protect our staff, we've had to not do face-to-face sales of blue bags. I know that's been a bit of a challenge. They are available not just at Shaw's Stop and Shop, but Fiore's gas station and Hingham Lumber. So if you have concerns about going into Shaw's Stop and Shop, Fiore's has them as well, and so does Hingham Lumber. And we are trying to improvise something to do some kind of a point of sale transaction at the RTF, but please understand that we don't want to put staff in touch with every single person in town coming into the RTF if we don't have to. We can't outfit them in suits and stuff. And they're doing the really most unsexy and most critical work, right? People have to throw away garbage. We're still taking recyclables as well. So people, please bring your recyclables. The scouts are not returning them for deposits, but we're still taking them. And we're not taking the big bulky items, nothing that requires a cash payment. So no waste, no bulky waste, no tires. We will get back to those. So hopefully somebody's not replacing multiple refrigerators at their house. We will take those again, but just not right now. So if everyone could just be a little patient with that, we're going to try to keep regular business going as much as possible. If there's any other questions for me about operations, please let me know.
Okay, I'm looking to see if there's any questions. I don't see. All right, any other questions from the board or anybody on this entire section? Okay, I see Mr. Schubert's hand is up. Paul, go ahead. How was it? Paul, go ahead. You're on, Paul.
One quick thing. Yeah, one quick thing. I know people want to go clean their cars in the car wash, but if you're using the vacuum cleaners there, I'm not certain that doesn't aerosolize what may be in the car or in somebody who is working on it who may be potentially COVID positive. I would recommend if you want to vacuum your car, use your own vacuum at home just in case. I'm not certain whether or not a vacuum would aerosolize someone's cough when they're cleaning out their car in a public place where they're doing the vacuum. That's all.
Thank you, Paul. Any other questions at all? And I'm not seeing any hands up. So we'll end this portion of the meeting. The next portion of the meeting is discussing temporary change in the public meeting posting board from town hall to town website. This is how we post meetings and such as this and other meetings. For this, I'm going to turn the program over to Chris Senior. Okay, Chris, go ahead. One
Thank you.
second. You there,
Thank
Chris?
you. I got you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes.
So I had spoken with Carol St. Pierre about this particular circumstance, and the clerk staff is also only working part-time in the building. They're here, but they're not here every day. And historically, and for good reason, the primary posting, the official posting, has always been on that bulletin board, and the website's always been kind of a bonus. It's we obviously update it and use it, and one of the reasons for that is that the posting on the bulletin board is permanent, so it's up there. The challenge with electronic posting is that if power goes down or the website goes down for 6 hours, every meeting has to be reposted. Everything that's posted is no longer valid. So that's one of the reasons we've never gone to that on a regular basis. At this point, though, Carol has talked to me, and I'm going to recommend that the board adopt, only for the duration of the emergency, a replacement to make the town website the official posting location as opposed to the bulletin board. And that will allow them a little more flexibility for posting because Carol's not always physically here. We still have the 48-hour rules on all of that. But for I have to run down here every time someone tries to post a meeting, it can be a little bit of a challenge. So that's the recommendation, is that for the duration of the emergency, and the Board of Selectmen has to approve this, that the posting become the website that allows her to post meetings from home, and that once the emergency ends, it'll automatically revert back to the official posting on the.
Okay, I think that's fairly clear. Are there any questions on that? I think that's fairly clear. What I'll do is entertain a motion, and it should refer to it going until the town emergency is expired, until we lift the town emergency. This would be in effect. I see Paul's gone on mute. Would you like to make that motion, Paul?
I'd like to make a motion that for the time during the state of emergency authorized by the governor, that town posting for town meetings be posted on electronic board on the town website.
Okay, I think Carrie Thompson, I recognize you for a second. Carrie? Carrie?
Yes, I second that.
Okay, the motion has been first and seconded. I'm now going to unmute everybody because it'll be easier to go through this. So everybody's on motion. The motion's been first and seconded. Any further discussion? No further discussion. We do roll call vote because we're in virtual reality here. So I'll start with Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul?
Paul Schubert, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye.
Carrie
Carrie.
Thompson, aye.
Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Okay, Tracy, that's unanimous and the motion has been passed. Okay, and now that takes care of that. On this next item, and I'm keeping you all open just for a moment here, involves changing the dates of the town meeting and therefore changing the dates of the town election. The way we're structured constitutionally is the town election actually is part of the town meeting. The town meeting doesn't officially end until you have the election. We can't have our town meeting at our normal time, which would be the first, I think it was the first week of May. That's too close to feasibly expect everybody to get together. So there's a proposal here. What was thrown out as a proposal was just to have the town meeting be moved to June 22nd, and then the town election then be to June 27th. And that would fall within the rules, the order that the government is given, which is allowing towns to move our elections up until anytime earlier than July 1. So that fits in with that. Now, this situation of moving this is a slight complication here is that my term as a selectman is up, I think, and Diane's term also is up. Because we're moving this town meeting, and we get paid a small stipend, essentially I believe, and Diane also would be recused from this discussion and vote on moving of the town meeting. So this would be a 3-person thing. I haven't discussed with Diane, but I assume you're aware of what I'm talking about, Diane. So that being the case, I'm going to ask Chris Senior to lead this discussion here, and then when it comes time to the motion, Paul Schubert will take over as chair, and this will be a 3-person vote. Everybody okay with that? Diane, again, I had discussed that with you. I should understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. Okay, so with that, I'll turn the show on this here over to the program over to Chris.
Hey, thank you, Kevin. We've been working with we've been watching and monitoring what's been going on at the state. Obviously, this is unprecedented. Our fiscal year ends on June 30th, and town elections have to take place by June 30th pursuant to state law. And up until really this last week or so, we really had no clear direction as to where we were going to go with this. And after doing some consultations and trying to push this as late as possible, the best dates we can make work that push us late enough into June is the 22nd, which is the second to last Monday. And historically, our town election, again, as Kevin pointed out before, follows after the start of town meeting. And that set it for the Saturday, June 27th. Terms, by the way, naturally just continue. Unlike the president or the governor, where a term ends on January 1 or January 20th, the officials at the town level serve until the successor is elected, because the election date changes every year because town meeting moves around. So in this, pushing it off to a later date. We have consulted with council's office on this. We've talked to the moderator, and everyone seems to be good with making these dates work, and the schools, so we've cleared the date. If for whatever reason it's still problematic to get the town meeting that day, the powers of moderator has to push it back. The town election, though, can still go forward. There's going to be early voting for the town election on paper ballots. People, we're actually working through that with the clerk, and I hope to have more information soon. But likely what will happen is there'll be an opportunity for anyone to request an absentee ballot at home, and you'll be able to then mail it in. So if anyone has any concerns about coming into the auditorium, that will hopefully be obviated. I don't know how many weeks in advance that'll be. We don't know all the details. So we'll be able to have the town election on the 27th no matter what. Even if we end up in a situation like we are today, you still could have the town election. Obviously, we'd have virtual candidate forums or whatever else I've been the only part with the town election is that I have an opinion from council that I will share with all of you, and this is from Council Durence's office. Attorney Berry is the one who prepared it. That the deadlines for papers and all that can't move. So even though we can move the election to June 27th, you can't extend the deadline for either taking papers out or returning them. So that's the only piece on that. There's 2 seats that, because of the circumstances that the last few weeks. There's a Board of Selectmen seat and a Recreation Commission seat that have no final papers at this point. So those would be write-in campaigns. So that's the practical reality of how the election would work. There'll be more information on it. Town meeting, we'll talk more about that in the next couple of weeks. That said, I think the 22nd is a practical date. We'll just set theirs for the 15th. We should be able to make this happen in June. In fact, we have to make it happen in June, because even if the town meeting itself is scaled down, we have a budget to adopt, some other very important work that has to get done before the end of the fiscal year. So that's that update. If anyone has any questions for me.
Yeah, Chris, Chris, so from a point of view, from the state point of view, we could potentially do it a monthly financials if necessary from June 30th on. Is that right?
Yeah, it's what's called a 1/12 budget. One of the challenges, we don't operate in a 1/12 reality, right? We have spikes for debt. Debt service is not level funded every month, and
right.
Other payments for insurance and things like that also peak. In fact, July is one of our biggest months. Prepay certain things and save us money. We don't necessarily have to prepay certain things, but there's still debt payments, other things that come due in July that we have to pay. So there is a backup fail-safe if for whatever reason we couldn't adopt the budget. I'm hoping we won't have to get there. And coming into the 22nd, I'm expecting some other towns had town meetings by that point. And we'll see how it all works. Backup.
Chris, I have a quick
worst
question.
case. Yeah.
Chris,
Right,
so
Terry.
just want to confirm to you that the signature deadline then has already passed. I know some people who have thought about still submitting the signatures weren't sure because the legislature was thinking about maybe extending that deadline, I know, for other higher-level seats. So I didn't know if you'd heard anything about that or if we're just keeping it as it being a deadline that is passed already.
So that's a good question, Carrie. I was actually talking about that with both Carol St. Pierre and with Council Berry today. We actually had a couple of calls. The legislation didn't move those dates, those deadlines. I don't know why. I mean, it may have just been an oversight. They may change that. But as of today, they haven't. So as of today, the deadlines that happened in March, earlier this month, are still the deadlines for having taken out papers and returning them. That may change, but at the moment, the state had not changed. So our Council Berry did talk to the elections chief at the Secretary of State's office, and we went through all of this. So the selectmen can most certainly change the dates. That's not a problem. But at this point, that have to be, again, this is subject to change, but as of right today, they'd have to be, those 2 seats would be open and would be ready. Anybody else?
So
It's off to you, Paul.
Yeah, so there is some precedent for this in the 1918, 1919 great influenza. They did have pushed back some of the local elections in various states. I'm not certain whether it was in the Commonwealth, but I know they did it in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They did it in upstate New York and a few other places where the great influenza caused a very similar situation where it disrupted potential voting. So there is precedent for this, just to let people know.
And this is extremely unusual. Obviously, we're in a once a century, hopefully not more than that, world. And every other, and again, we're a little unique. And you know, if you had a set date like in November, hopefully November's, that's a long way away. Because our local elections here are tied to town meetings, they kind of move with them a little bit. So when you have to move town meeting, you sometimes have to move the town election. And again, so the emergency bills allow the selectmen to do that. And that's and again, I sent out, I could put it up on the screen, but I also sent a motion a little earlier to everyone's email for tonight for this.
So then I'd ask for a motion acting as vice chairman in lieu of the chairman for moving the new dates for town meeting and town election for a tentative date June 22 for town meeting and June 27 for town election.
Can you see the screen, Paul? Can you see what I posted up?
Oh, there we go. Okay. I'd ask for a motion for the town of Cohasset motion pursuant to section
Sorry,
1.
Paul, go ahead.
I'd like to ask for a motion, town of Cohasset motion pursuant to section 1 of chapter 45 of the Act of 2020, because of the state of emergency declared by the governor pursuant to Executive Order 591, declaration of a state of emergency to respond to COVID-19, and the Board of Selectmen's March 16, 2020 declaration of emergency. The annual town meeting scheduled for May 4, 2020 is hereby rescheduled from Monday, May 4, 2020 to Monday, June 22, 2020, and the annual town election is rescheduled from Saturday, May 9, 2020 to Saturday, June 27, 2020. Do I have the motion?
I
Yes, you do.
second that.
So the motion has been first by Jack Creighton, seconded by Kerry Thompson. I would ask for a roll call vote. Jack?
Aye. Jack Creighton, aye.
Kerry?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye. There are no nays. It passes unanimously, 3-0. 2 are not voting due to conflict of interest. Kevin, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well done. Thank you very much, Paul. What we'll do is going to go, excuse me? Yes. What we'll do is we're going to go next to a discussion of this. There's been actually a considerable amount of legislative action going on both at the federal and the state level. This will just be at the state level, but to review some of the pending and possible but not yet adopted bills, just so the board can get a preview of it and the town can too. So with that, I will ask Christina to conduct that review of state emergency legislation. Chris, you're on.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. I've been in touch pretty regularly with Senator O'Connor's office and Representative Mosquito's office because things at Beacon Hill are moving pretty regularly. Then they're operating with a very unusual schedule and setup right now too. So there's a couple of big things that are still being considered, and they're moving along. I don't think anything was actually adopted today, but I didn't check back late in the afternoon. A couple of them are things that Paul mentioned, changing changing the 1/12 budget and allowing a little more flexibility if a town meeting couldn't take place. Also, for a water and sewer district, if they couldn't adopt the budget, they could go to a 1/12. That has not been adopted, but it's something the state's looking at. Something else, it will grant the town moderators special powers to extend a meeting by 30 days. It used to be just for a weather-related emergency or public safety emergency. They've added a public health emergency. Well, they will add, hopefully, public health emergency to the, which would allow the moderator on his own, with consultation, to be able to move a meeting in a public health emergency. Not just, because I know I've been told that at least once in the past, a special had to be moved because of a snowstorm or a regular town meeting. So that was always in the moderator's power. Now it would allow public health as well. There's also some very technical things about the ability to move around free cash and spend other revenue that you have if you really have to do it on an interim basis. And also allow, there's a lot of technical things that happen at town meeting. There's, resetting the revolving fund accounts and all that. Some of these would allow that to move and not have to worry until a later date. Very important, there's some big deadlines coming up. Our tax deadline is May 1st. And right now we can't change it, but the state legislation would allow the Board of Selectmen to move that deadline to June 1. It would allow the Board of Selectmen to waive penalties on late payments. Again, that hasn't happened yet, but that would be something that the legislation would allow. And that we'd also be able to, right now, the deadline for exemptions, real estate is actually April 1. In fact, Mary Quill went to somebody's house today to pick up a form from them. She's a full service assessor. That bill hasn't passed yet, but if it does, the board will also be able to allow to kick that deadline back to June 1 as well from the April deadline, to allow people to file exemptions, senior exemptions and other exemptions up until June 1 for the next fiscal year. So those are still pending. Those are some of the big things. Also, you probably heard the talk about allowing retirees to come back to work. There's always been an hour cap. You can only work so many hours. And that would be lifted to allow retirees to come back into positions where they might be needed in a critical emergency. That's just some of the things that have been kicking around out there. There's a number of others involving first responders and all that they're constantly looking at. So those are some of the big ones that would affect us right here. And I'm hoping that at the next board meeting, and we'll talk more about this a little bit later, but I'm going to recommend the board to get back on a regular schedule and the board meets every couple of weeks on a Tuesday. I'm hoping that by the time the board reconvenes, that the state will have taken action and we can give a list of things or recommendations, including moving the tax deadlines back and allowing a fee waiver. At the same time, we do have to be careful. The town does still have to pay its bills. So, we want to, I think pushing back a month is completely reasonable once the state grants that permission. Same thing with waiving penalties. The goal, though, is to get as much money by June 30th as possible, because that's the end of the fiscal year. So we want to make sure we close the year out in as strong shape as possible. So, and I could give a quick update on finances a little bit later if you like. So those are the big items up there on Beacon Hill. Does anyone have any questions about this or some other things they've heard about?
Okay, I'm looking for hands. And I don't see any. So that being the case, thank you very much for that report. And we look forward to there being more legislation, some of which we can react to, but that's a good heads up for us in the town. The next item on the agenda, I'm going to have Chris, you can discuss this too, and then we can have a vote one way or the other. And that is relative to extending public event permit freeze that is currently in effect until May 4th, 2020. That's the proposal. Chris, could you embellish on that, please?
Okay, so the governor has effectively frozen all public events. I think the board should just formally take a vote to also suspend, effectively freeze all existing permits. And there's only a couple. The Little League's already announced that they're going to move their parade. The march, the MS Walk and all is going to be moved as well. That said, I think the board should formally do that and say all events, all event permits are, are frozen or suspended. I use the word freeze, but suspended would be just as the same through May 4th. Obviously, we'll continue to review. No one's come to us with any new permits. We have some rather big events coming up in June and July. So we'll have to judge, we'll have to kind of continue to manage and watch those. I'm sure that Dr. Schubert would underscore that the worst possible thing we could do is we try to walk out of this and start to have major events right away and put lots and lots of people together. So we'll have to see how that's all going as we get into June and July, because June, there's the triathlon, there's the Arts Fest, and then of course we have the proposals for some very big celebrations. So we'll have to see what happens in April, and I think we'll revisit that. But at this point, my recommendation is that you go through May 4th and freeze all the existing permits.
Okay, I have a hand up, Paul Schubert, and
Kevin and Chris, I agree. This is going to be week by week, and honestly, I'm not sure what ending point we would decide saying we can open things up, but the schools are already shut down to the 4th. I think this is totally reasonable. Push it off to the 4th and then see how things pan out. If it's a mild curve or if it's a bad curve, I think we'll know in the next, probably 6 weeks.
question also, thank you, Paul. Chris, do you know that once we lift the emergency, or once, say, May 4th comes about, would we have to rehear all the events again? Because there'd be new dates.
Only ones that if everybody wants to reapply, they'd come in and reapply. I do think, as Paul said, we're taking this kind of on a week by week basis, and we'll have to see. At this
Why
point,
don't we do the date we lift this, on that date there? Let's have a plan to tell people how they can reapply, or whether we're what they can do and to get new dates if they want them. Some of them they won't be able to. When we leave
yes.
it at that.
Yeah, that's how we'll go forward. So.
Yep. And looking for any other hands, of which I do not see any. So I'm going to ask for a motion on this, which is you can read it from the agenda, which is to extend the current public event permit freeze until May 4th. Someone want to make that motion, please? Paul, I see you getting ready. Oh, Diane, please. Diane.
So I move that we put a freeze on all permitted events through May 4th, 2020.
Second.
Do I hear a second? Any discussion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I'm just looking to just make sure that anybody has anything to say. I don't see any hands. Therefore, I've unmuted everybody. I'll ask for a roll call vote. Start with Jack Creighton.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Carrie.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. Paul.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
See those, that's unanimous vote. Thank you, folks, on that. 1 second. With that, I'm going to ask for the Christine to come back up again and give the town manager update. Chris, the floor is yours. Let me, and you're all set, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. So I just want to touch on a couple things. First, I want to reiterate my thanks on behalf of the town for the work that Senator O'Connor and Representative Mosquito have been doing on our behalf. They've been in regular contact. One of the very first people I called in early March was Senator O'Connor's office, and he was very helpful when we were in the very, very earliest stages of this, plugging us into information when we really didn't know what was going to happen next. But they've been both very helpful. Their offices have been very helpful, and I want to thank them for all their cooperation. It's been a very all hands on deck, and they've been very helpful in keeping us plugged in to what's going on at the state level. I am going to recommend, Kevin, that the board officially do establish dates of meetings. I'm going to recommend you meet every 2 weeks. You meet again on the 14th and the 28th. And I do think that by the time we get to the 28th, we're going to have to figure out a way to get more. This seems to be working well. We'll have to figure out a way to get more people up on the platform if we're going to do. Like we have a couple of liquor license applications. I mean, there's nothing that's has to happen tomorrow. But if we're going to start doing regular business, there are a couple of fairly routine. There's a new one to replace Simply Smith's, I think, and then there's a change of manager at the Cohasset operates. So I think they're both vetted and ready to go. We just want to make sure we had a platform that would work. So that might come up later in the month. And some other
I'm gonna just because just to take care of that, just so the board knows, and unless I'm seeing any objection, we don't need to vote on this. I believe it.
Yeah.
We're going to set the next meetings are going to be for the 14th and the 28th. And so I'm going to look to see if I have any hands, if anybody wants to say anything on that. I don't. Those will be the next two board meetings, and they'll be virtual like this. And then we can decide the further board meetings after that. But those are the next two ones. I just wanted to take care of that. Chris, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I just want to let everyone know I've been meeting with the finance team as well. We've been meeting virtually, and we're meeting again on Thursday. Obviously, this has been a big, giant shock, and we've taken a real hard look at where we are. The good news is that in the short term, we seem to be okay. People generally pay their bills on time in town, and both the commitments for our motor vehicle have been collected well. And property taxes to date have been collected at our usual very high rate. And we're hoping that's going to continue even with some delays right through the end of the fiscal year. That said, what happens next year, we don't know. On a call I was on earlier today, the state did talk about they're having a big administration and finance meeting next week, and they're going to be taking a look at the state budget. I've heard different numbers. Obviously, the state revenues are going down. Whether this is a short drop or something longer term, we don't really know. That said, at the local level, we're okay. We're a AAA credit. We have some strong financial stabilization funds in place. That said, it's highly likely we're going to have to take a hard look. We are starting to take a look, but at the budget for fiscal year 21. So this will be something that'll be coming up again and before all of you in the not too terribly distant future. There is one project I did want to bring up to all of you tonight because Brian Joyce reminded me about it. If you remember the Town Common project, the restoration of the project, we have a $250,000 Safe Streets grant to improve it. We actually have the opportunity to begin work in April. There's pros and cons to that. The pros are that it's the construction crews are available, the money's available, and with the nursery school shut down, there's less disruption. On the other hand, there's mostly going to be disruption for the people who live around the common. And since everyone's at home right now, it would be something that would be happening in their front, right in their neighborhoods for some number of weeks. And it's, tearing up the concrete. Some of this is going to be loud and it's going to be messy. So I'm just bouncing this off for some thoughts. We don't have to make a call right this second, but I just wanted to get a vibe on this, whether or not we should think about doing it now or consider waiting until the fall.
I see Diane Kennedy's got a hand up on this, so go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, I think this begs a little bit of a deeper conversation too, because we did express to the nursery school folks that we would have them back, before we made any forward progress on this project, just to kind of assess the situation. And I mean, of course, everything is, how do you assess and what do you assess? Does the grant money run up? Do we have to complete the work by a certain date?
Yeah, as of right now, it does. Now, I'm hoping the state will extend it because everyone's in a pretty in the same boat. Now, the work that's been planned wouldn't. By the way, there's been some tweaks to the plan, so the curbing and all would not prohibit. If the board decided to, allow more liberal parking, it would still be possible. There's been some tweaks to the plan that would allow, it would look a lot nicer than it does today, but would also be flexible. And we haven't, as you can see, because of the weather turning in the fall, got cold fast, even though we didn't have the worst winter. We weren't able to stripe and finish some of that. I can tell you the one-ways do seem to be working. And of course, there's no churches in session right now either because of the emergency. But up until that happened, it did seem to be working better on Sundays and in general, the traffic pattern. I did have one or two residents who live up by St. Stephen's who are not particularly thrilled to have to drive around a little trip, but most other people that I talk to seem to be okay. So yeah, there is, you know, we are going to try to see if the state will extend the grant. And it's, you know, I'm just bringing it up because I don't want to make a unilateral decision here either way. And I just wanted to circulate this. And again, you don't have to, I'm not looking for a vote necessarily, but just a consensus. And if the answer is, well, let's think about this a little bit more, it's okay. And I can come back to all of you in 2 weeks.
I mean, yeah, my point, just summarizing is, you know, I definitely think we should look for the extension A, but I do feel a responsibility to at least have a check-in with the community members that we promised to check in with.
It's just, you know, unfortunately, we haven't been able to do anything. And part of the challenge here is that we actually haven't implemented the temporary even fix on the road. We still, I mean, by the way, I was walking the dog today around the common before the meeting, and there were people just, you know, rolling right through, right by the common, and they were not slowing down for nothing. And there was no one around, so they weren't going to hit anything. But it's a bad habit to get into that, you know, people should slow down when they get to the village. So I do think we'd still like to try that test, you know, moving the lanes and the parking. And maybe we can get that done and without doing any of the major construction. We could just run that test because we did promise we would try that. And we haven't even done that yet. And we could, I will talk to Brian about the availability of the painting, you know, the restriping, because this would actually be a good time to do that. It's quiet. That's actually very easy to do, and we can see how it starts to work. And I will ask about an extension. I sincerely hope the state will be reasonable.
Okay, Diane's hand is up. Go ahead, Diane.
No, just on that point, I mean, the one interesting thing is there is a lot of heavy traffic in town because people are around. So, you know, any kind of tests you can do, it probably is a good time because it's like a weekend almost. And people are driving way too fast. I was going to leave that for my selectman comment period, but I'll shut up now.
I can tell you from the speed sign outside my house, you're right.
So in order to get the input that Diane had noted that we would, you know, had promised to get back to them on, maybe one way to work with that is Chris, for you to somehow meet or have a conference or even a teleconference or a phone conference with whoever the relevant parties are with the school and get their input that way. And maybe that will, I mean, because, you know, they may have major points to make, or they may say, you know, whatever, they're okay with it or whatnot, but that may be a way to do that. And then also, you know, check on the availability of getting further time. But one way or the other, I don't think that we would want, you know, make sure we don't lose the opportunity to do this without the board having made that conscious decision. I think the board has made the decision, and the town, they've committed to the town essentially to do this. So don't let that go by, you know, without us knowing about it and having agreed to it, which I don't know whether we would or not. If I'm making myself clear.
I looked like, by the way, Kevin, it looked like Jack was raising his hand, literally, not virtually. So you.
Okay, I didn't see his hand, but Jack, wait a second. Jack, I'm gonna unmute you. I didn't see it. Jack, you're on.
Okay. Yeah, I think if we have the opportunity to get this done with the least disruption, I would think Diane is correct. We should check with the nursery school. But we may find that they would say, listen, let's get this done. Let's get this done quickly with less disruption. It's a good opportunity to do that. I would check with them. If they did not have strong objections, then we should probably go forward. I think we'd like to get this done. And I am concerned about speeding, not just there, but in other parts of town. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, I'm looking for any other hands on this subject, and I don't see any. You can proceed. Anything else with the town manager update, Chris?
No, I'm open to any questions, but you know, at the moment, that's what I have.
Any questions on the board? I'm not. Any questions further for Chris on this? I'll just look on I don't see any. Okay, so we'll go to selectmen comments. Diane Kennedy, you want to start off? Actually, I'm going to unmute all for this. Everybody can be quiet other than who's speaking. It'll work out okay, I think. All right, go ahead, Diane. And I'll call on each of the selectmen to speak.
I'll just keep it brief and just say, thank you to everybody who's really come together as a community. It's what everybody says, in times of trouble, people really rally, and the people that have volunteered, and there's all kinds of initiatives with citizens in town to expand food pantry or come up with a creative community cooking or do mental health videos, which I know are going to get rolled out this week. So just a thank you to the town leadership and the community in general for everything they're doing under very trying circumstances. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that check on your neighbors, check down the street when you're out walking. The town has really come together on this, and it's going to be a very difficult bunch of weeks ahead of us. To the public safety, to the emergency management people, and to all the people working in town. This is going to be very difficult, but we're going to get through it. And if someone can just take a look at your neighbors and anyone down the street, drop off cookies if you can. You can always drop off food and not worry that you're going to contaminate. And wash your hands and just be careful with the context. Really don't stick around in somebody's house. Don't go to a dinner party. Don't have a play date. We really have to break this chain of transmission. That's it.
Thank you, Paul. Gary?
In addition to, yes, hi. In addition to what Paul said, I think it's great everyone's taking time to go outside and get some fresh air. But remember that you need to stay physically distanced, especially at places like Sandy Beach. It is not okay to be congregating on the beach or in parking lots and pulling your cars next to each other. Just be aware of that. Be careful of that. We are so lucky to live in a town where we have beautiful places to go and get fresh air and take in nature, but really be careful about that. Also, a shout out to all of our small businesses and local businesses in town. I know that a lot of you all are struggling. I'm really impressed with the ingenuity and creativity that a lot of you are doing to try to still support the community. So those of us who can support our businesses by, buying gift cards and getting takeout and, just supporting them in any way possible, continue to do that.
Okay. Jack?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say we should be special. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think we should,
Yes.
a special concern for our first responders. We should remember that they will run out, whether the police or fire or Board of Health, and they will, by necessity, doing their job, they will be exposed. And I think we should remember that. And I'd also like to say something. The average citizen in this town has performed heroically. They're taking care of their kids, they're taking care of their seniors, not looking for recognition, just being good citizens. And I'm very proud to be a member of the select board in Cohasset, representing people like the citizens of Cohasset who have really gone above and beyond. And I'm proud of each and every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make a comment. This is totally unexpected crisis has arisen. And Chris, a lot of this has fallen on you. Complete surprise. This is where great leadership comes forward. I think you're doing a tremendous job in your leadership of this community at this time. This is an immensely complex and difficult problem at the community, state, and federal level. And I got to say, I think you're doing a great job. I'm delighted we have you on the job doing this, and you have certainly justified a lot of the confidence that we in the community have in you. And I want to thank you for your leadership during this time. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next item is any topics not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours. There aren't any I know of. So we're gonna go ahead and move
There
to,
aren't any? That's remarkable.
I wanted to say, I do want to say, we've ended this meeting ahead of time, which is the first time in a long
That's
time.
remarkable.
Maybe we should have been doing virtual meetings all along.
Hurry up, let's adjourn, let's adjourn.
So I'm going to turn this over for Chris to adjourn and turn the meeting off because he's going to take care of the technology of ending the meeting.
Okay,
Stay
I've
safe,
reclaimed
guys.
the.
Wash your hands.
Exactly, yes, wash your hands. I've reclaimed the host status. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all, and we'll meet again on the 14th.
Motion,
Okay, need a motion to adjourn?
second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Roll call, but that's okay.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. This meeting is now adjourned. Chris, you can turn us off technologically.
Will take us down. So the first all virtual meeting in Cohasset history has just completed.
Good work.
Okay, I'm going to end the
Good
meeting.
work, guys.